So anyhow, we are at Exodus 13:17. And when Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was near, for God said the people might change their mind when they see war and return to Egypt. Might change their mind? Goodness sakes, these people are fickle. Okay. They change their mind all the time. So hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, and the sons of Israel went up in martial array in the land of Egypt. That means that they were in a battle formation. And what it also means from the US, we would say circle the wagons, right? That's the way you circle the wagons around the women and children. So they've got their soldiers, their armed men on the outside and in the front and the back protecting, the weaker among them. So they're in battle array. So they're ready to take care of business. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones from here with you. Don't you think that might have took a little time? Right? He and Aaron are going back and forth with Pharaoh, walking, there's no daylight, there's darkness, there's swarms and whatever. And they're like, wait a minute, something I forgot to do. I'm going to have to stop by. Let's pick up Joseph's bones on the way out of town. Okay. It's pretty good that he did that because he was supposed to. And they set out from Sukkot and camped in Etham on the edge of the wilderness. Now, this is interesting. The first place they go to is named Sukkot, which is booths, right? That same word as Feast of Sukkot. And so they were going to go camp in the wilderness, and the first place they stop is there. Tools, graphics viewer, big, and this is their journey. So they go from Goshen and they go to Sukkot, and then it says it crosses over down High Heroth over here. I'm not so sure about that because there are people out there who say that they didn't cross the Red Sea, that they crossed the Reed Sea, and it's significantly shallower. I'm confident from reading the context that wherever they crossed had to be pretty deep. Otherwise, Pharaoh's soldiers would have just walked home. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Which takes more faith to believe that they crossed this sea of reeds, which, is just a marsh, that 250,000 foot soldiers, plus all the war wagons and all the horses and everything else, could drown in knee-deep mud, or to believe that they went and actually crossed the sea at the Gulf of Aqaba.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty hard for me to believe that, that many soldiers would drown in a marsh.
Yeah, it'd be like a comedy. Yeah.
Why would he have to part it?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we know where he did cross, and that's in the Gulf of Aqaba. They didn't. This whole Sea of Reeds thing it's made up by people who are trying to discount the miracles.
Yeah. And the Sukkot, you guys know what chiastic structures are? Have you ever heard that big word before? Chiasms in scripture, it's sometimes you'll see a topic and this verse above and the verse above it and the verse below it'll match. And the verse above that and the verse below that will match. So they look like a symmetry. Okay. So the symmetry is part of Eastern culture, and it's part of, because you know how we have cycles instead of lines and stuff. And so there's a chiastic structure here for mankind that is very interesting and it doesn't really mean much, but the first place they go after they leave Egypt is Sukkot. The last place mankind goes before eternity is Sukkot. It's a mirror. So for those who don't know, sorry to be late. Oh, Shabbat Shalom. No problem. And so the plan of salvation shows that the Passover first starts with Abraham and Isaac. Abraham willing to give up his son of the promise, the firstborn son, right? And then it goes to the Passover that we just read last week, where they slaughter the lambs, and the lamb's blood on the doorpost covers, covers the Israelites and protects them from the angel of death. So then we go to the New Testament, and John says, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world," talking about the Messiah, how the Messiah's blood covers those who accept him as the Messiah, just like the Passover. Okay. So we take that and we say, wait a minute, if those holy days, if the Passover is talking about his first coming, what about the fall holy days? The fall holy days talk about his second coming and the end of end of this age, end of the world, right? And so Sukkot is part of the millennium. In the last half of Zechariah, it says that all of mankind will go up to Jerusalem to keep the feasts, and those who do not will not get any rain, which means they die. Okay, so that means famine. So that all of mankind, we think, is in the millennium, have to keep the holy days, and that then at the last day of the eighth day, the last day of the feast, or the eighth day, however you want to call it, it is the gateway between the eighth day of Sukkot. That's Sukkot 7 days long, and then there's an eighth day. That's the gateway between this world and the next. And so the chiastic structure here, in a long ham-handed way, is that the first place the Israelites go is Sukkot before they enter into the promised land. For mankind, the last thing we're going to do is keep Sukkot before we go into the eternal bliss of eternity. So there's so much here that that we are blessed with, because we had the audacity to read the Bible from page 1 to the end, right? This isn't some special hidden knowledge. This is something that is pretty widely known in Judaism as well. They believe that the Feast of Trumpets is the great and terrible day of the Lord, just like us. So it's very nice for us to have these understandings. It also gives us a sense of peace, because there is a plan. There's a framework, there's a plan in place. And most of Christianity, Jesus come back tomorrow. They just think it's kind of random events, right? But it's not random events. Yahweh he had 10 plagues in Egypt, and he said he hardened Pharaoh's heart because he wanted to have 10 plagues in Egypt. He wanted it to go to the 10 plagues, and he wanted them to get driven through the sea, in order to show that he is the Almighty, that he is it, that there's nobody greater, nobody more powerful. So that plan that he executed for the Exodus is a microcosm of the plan of salvation, that he's letting mankind get as far out of whack as we want to get. So at the end of it, he's going to bring 7 plagues, and that's going to dismantle this world, just like the 10 plagues dismantled the world of Egypt. Okay. So Yahweh was going before them in a pillar of cloud by day to lead them on the way, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. He did not take the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Lots to unpack here. Later, we're going to find out that it wasn't literally Yahweh that was going before them, but an angel of God. Was the cloud is called an angel of God later. Very frequently in Scripture, it says Yahweh does something when he's actually using other beings and other people to execute his will. This is not unheard of in our language as well. We say General Patton won World War II, right? General Patton, right? We say Andrew Jackson won the Civil War. Well, he didn't literally fight every battle, right? Lincoln. Oh, okay, Lincoln. Okay, okay. Lincoln won the Civil War, but the general that's credited to it, right? Grant. All right, forget it. I should write this stuff down before I start talking. All right. All right. Thank you. So, at any rate, we go to the next chapter. It was really time to do that anyway, not just because I was misspeaking. So Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, tell the sons of people to turn back and camp before Pi Ha-Hiroth, between Migdol and the sea, and you shall camp in front of Baal Zephon, opposite by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after them, and I will be honored through Pharaoh and his army, and all the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh. And they did so. So it's a plan. This is a complete plan to put 2 million people up against the ocean so that they have nowhere to go, right? Because Yahweh is really trying to hammer home a point here that he's miraculously saving these people, that this is not some happenstance. This isn't, they're not doing it on their own will. They're not fighting their way out, that he's going to do something miraculous. Looks like you want to say something. Did I mess up again?
No, not at all. No, there's a road. If you look at your map, there's a road that, I mean, they had what they would call, you'd call a highway, and it came from the Saudi Arabia across the Sinai Peninsula and then over to Egypt. I mean, they had roads where they had commerce to travel just like we do.
Yeah.
They also had a north-south road that came up, So, and what I believe they were doing is they were going just east down the highway, headed for what we would call Saudi Arabia today, because, remember, Moses was in Midian. Well, Midian is on the west side of Saudi Arabia up against the Gulf of Aqaba. And then when he says that they turned, and from what it looks to me like is they got over there, but God brought them back and then brought them down the west side of the Gulf. I mean, so I think that's where Pharaoh's thing that, oh, well, they're wandering around out there in the wilderness and they're lost. That's where I think that God caused him to think that, was because of them turning back off of the highway,
Yeah.
And then he brings them down Watir Canyon. I mean, talk about a complete boxed in. Pharaoh had them where he knew there was no escape. And, then we know how that goes, but, and the miracle of the whole thing, I mean, to me is just truly an amazing thing. It's, it's so many sides of it, and it goes so much deeper than what the church in general today just glosses over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good. Yeah. And it's supposed to. I mean, that's your reaction is the purpose of it, right? Ross, you had your hand up. You could just start talking.
Oh, no, I made a mistake. I'm trying to figure out this new screen. I did update the software and I accidentally hit the raised hand.
Oh, here's my raised hand. All right, well, just chime in when you want. So he's hardening Pharaoh's heart, and he makes a chariot ready, and he took 600 select chariots and other chariots of Egypt and officers all over them. Now, this is something that people who are detractors of the Bible and will pick at, because they aren't supposed to have any horses left. The plagues, the pestilence, the hail, all that stuff was supposed to destroy all the livestock. Clearly, they still have it. Sometimes the Bible, when it says all, means most. And, that's just something we have to deal with. And that's, just the way it is. And so he's got 600 chariots. What the heck are 600 chariots going to do to 2 million people? I mean, are they really that powerful? Right? Right? Yeah. That was their biggest weapon. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But it's, I mean, and they're in a canyon. So you just climb up a little bit and that thing can't get you. Right? You stand up there and chuck spears and rocks and stuff until they fall down. Right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I just think that Pharaoh's kind of a little cocky here. Right? 600 chariots against 2 million people. Yeah. It'd be bad.
There's about 50,000.
Yeah, and 250,000 foot shoulders. Go ahead, Ross.
Well, I'm reading here something couple things I was reading this. It says a 600 chariots and other chariots. So in my mind, I was thinking like maybe the chariots you can maybe compare like battle tanks. The other chariots could have been like Humvees or smaller equipment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The war wagons and stuff would carry all of their equipment and water.
The war wagons that would carry all of their equipment and water and their supplies and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Supply
where did
chain.
they get 2 million?
The 2 million people that crossed,
Yeah.
uh, I think it says it, doesn't it? No.
No, that's when they did a census, there was like around 650,000 men.
Right.
According-
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they figure the women are the same, are about 1.3 million. But if they only had one child each, their population would keep on decreasing. So they probably had 2 or 3 children each family. So the population could have been 2.5, 3 million, is what I was thinking.
Ross, in my mind, this is quirky. In my mind, I see no problem with 3 million people because we got 603,550 that are included in the census, but that does not include the 22,500 Levites. So if we add, one wife, that bumps us up to, 1.2 million. If we say 2 kids, we're at 2.4. And then you don't have any of the elderly because they only did the count of the military age from, so you've got your elderly above that. And then who knows how many people are in the mixed multitude that came with them. There's nothing is ever said, never counted. So in my mind, I have no problem with there being 3 million people here, without a problem. But, some people say too, well, it's fine. It doesn't make any difference. But, I just think that's how I see they got it. You got it, Ross.
Yeah. To me, it seems like we always get a minimalist view, and I imagine there must have been a really great multitude.
Yeah, and I mean, I've actually seen things where people say, "Oh, there was only about 60,000 people," and I'm back to those people who are trying to deny how the size of the miracle here.
Yeah.
So, and I in my mind, how many Egyptians came with them that saw all the things that was happening to the Israel or not happening to the Israelites? We're like, well, they got something going on.
And the famine that started it all was global. We like to focus in on Israel and Egypt. There are probably a ton of different people in this mix, probably people from all over the planet that are in this group of people, and they all become Israel here in a minute, right? When we get to the 10 Commandments, where they all become Israel, and because they all hear Yahweh's voice, and so it's I don't know, 2 million, 3 million. That's significant. We've seen some gatherings in the past few years. When the Royals won the World Series, what did we have? 700,000 people or something in the streets, and the Chiefs. And we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. To me, that's a big enough miracle, right? If he marched 100,000 people across the desert like that, right? To do it with 2 million, I can't fathom 2 million people standing, being outside at once. It's beyond me, right? Because when you see, a parade, or when you see some, rallies and stuff like that, and when they zoom out, we don't even get to 1 million people, maybe 500,000 people. That's just an astonishing amount of people to me. It makes me a little claustrophobic, to tell you the truth. Yeah. So, but it's 2 million, 3 million. Yeah, what's another million? Right. Right. Yeah. Before long, we're talking about real money, right? Right. Right. So, so the Egyptians chased after them with all the horses, chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen, his army. They overtook them, camping by the sea, besides Pi Hahiroth, in front of Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel looked, behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and became very frightened. So the sons of Israel cried out to Yahweh. They said to Moses, is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses says, don't fear, stand by and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. So Moses did get told that there was going to be a miracle. He either didn't have time or he wasn't supposed to tell them, hey, by the way, guys, don't worry. I know we're up against the ocean. It's all going to work out, right? He didn't do that for whatever reason. Now he's telling them this. But for me, as I'm going to repeat this a couple times today, how many miracles do these people need to see? You know, like Yahweh did all this stuff, killed firstborn, killed crops, killed cattle, right? Humiliated Pharaoh, got them broken into the wilderness. Why would you not just assume that he's going to finish the job? You know, at what point, how much proof does he have to give? That's why I have that sermon I give every once in a while that really gets people to thinking, is that miracles don't produce faith. It just doesn't. They become parlor tricks. It become throwaway things. Faith is something. When the risen Messiah is talking about Thomas, he says, "Blessed are those who believe and do not see." Right? We're sitting here today, believing with every fiber of our being that these events happened. We believe it happened. We didn't see it. We believe it happened because we have the Bible, because God sent his son, because of this. We believe without seeing it, right? These people walking around with the Yahweh is manifested right in front of them. An enormous, they're the only people who have ever had light at night. We take this stuff for granted today. Today we have street lights, we have floodlights, we have lights in our pocket that could light up an entire stadium. But back then they didn't have that. And these guys are able to see at night and they're not worried about, and they're worried about this. I don't know. Go ahead. Yes.
Day and night.
Yes. Yep. So Corky points out that they're able to march at night, and that is the humongous advantage, right? And that's the advantage that our military had before we gave all of our stuff to the Taliban. Our military ruled the night because we in the West have the goggles that can keep us, going at night. Obviously, you should not fly a helicopter with these goggles, okay? But that's them being able to move at night and putting distance when everybody else has to stop. It's a big deal, the miraculous barrier. So then Yahweh will fight for you while you keep silent. Then Yahweh said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. As for you, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, and the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea on dry land. As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so they will go after them, and I will be honored through Pharaoh and his army. So it's amazing that Yahweh allows Moses to do physical things to make it look like Moses is actually doing it. Okay. As this is very repetitive from last week, from other weeks. What happens when ministers get big followings? They think I did that. I, right? Where Moses is the most humble man ever till Yeshua, right? That he always did the Father's will and always gave credit to the Father. Always gave it back to him. Said, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. So this is huge authority that Moses has been given here. And so he divides out the land. And, as I keep saying, how stupid are these Israelites to not trust that Yahweh is going to protect them after he does it over and over and over and over and over. How stupid are the Egyptians to get in that water? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to go and say they must have just been enraged at what they did to them? Russ.
I was thinking, I've been watching some films on the crossing. between Aqaba and Saudi Arabia. And where they think it is like a land bridge underwater. But in some spots, it's like 180, 200 feet deep. This wide land bridge that connects the two, which is mind blowing. Can you imagine being an Israelite over two millennia ago, looking up to see the water divine that's over 200 feet high above your head as you're going across? And the Egyptians are stupid enough to follow him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ross, it's quirky again. There's a really good book on this. It's called The Case for Exodus. And they have a pillar that is one that King Solomon had erected at the crossings where they came in and out. The one on the Saudi Arabian side has been removed when the Saudis found out they had this Hebrew pillar. They, with Hebrew writing on it, the only thing that's there now is a brass marker. But that crossing is there. This, what I called Watir Canyon a while ago, or anyway, it comes down onto a pretty good sized beach called Nuweiba Beach, and you can look that up on the internet. It's a pretty good sized beach, and but in the miracle of this thing, I'm like, here's you're completely trapped in the south side of this canyon. There's no getting a group of people over it. And I wonder if you walked around that beach that night and here's all of this whole entire army with you completely trapped. How many of the people would have, if you'd asked them what to do, would have said, well, I think if we just move the water out of the way, everything will be fine. I mean, the miracle that God can provide, we have no way of knowing. I don't think anybody thought they'd move the water and be okay, but yet it wasn't a problem. And, God saw this, and that land bridge that goes across there, it was, I mean, it's a remarkable thing. It's,
So this is the book you loaned me, and
Yes.
and that has been made into movies and videos. So and we had a brother from Wisconsin go and do that a couple of years ago, and he gave a presentation on it. So he actually went to that pillar. He went on the same trek. He saw the rocks with the hieroglyphs written on it about it. I mean, we have plenty of evidence right in front of our eyes if we want to know where they went. And he went on that trek and presented. His name's Kelly, forget his last name. But yeah, he presented that about 6 months ago on the Friday night group. Yeah. So you can watch that on Don's Congregational Fellowship YouTube channel. If you see a guy named Kelly, I think it's the only thing he's ever said there. And he took all these pictures. They climbed up to where up Mount Sinai, and they went up to where the 70 elders were, and then they went up the rocks, and they went up to the top. Me, I would never ever set my foot on that ground. I would be like, I'm not holy enough for that, right? Nope, not doing that. But to each his own, and so that so yeah, so I was reading that book, and I'm like, oh, I see where he's going. Yeah. Yes, Ross, go ahead.
There's a series of documentaries made. It's called Patterns of Evidence.
Yep.
Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are really good. I think when Ron Wyatt was exploring it, decades when he live, him and his sons bought some scuba gear, and they actually found underneath the water parts of the chariot wheels, because many of them were gold plated. And they took pictures of them, and they took them to Egypt, and they verified they were Egyptian, and they knew which dynasty, like the 4th or 5th dynasty. So it still remains of Pharaoh's army where this land bridge is.
It does seem that if Ron Wyatt could find it, that maybe somebody else could find it too, right? You know what I mean? Like that somebody should reproduce that, pronto. So now as we see the switch in 19, it says the angel of God who had been going before the camp of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So this it switched from Yahweh being the cloud to Melech Elohim, which Melech means messenger or representative or angel and stuff like that. It's not reserved for celestial beings as well, right? So a person, a prophet, can be a messenger, right? We wouldn't call them an angel, right? Because that means that it has more meaning to it. But in this case, it switches, just like in Genesis 18, it's Yahweh's talking, next sentence, angel of Yahweh's talking. Next sentence, Yahweh's talking. So it's just something the Bible does that makes us scratch our heads. So it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there was a cloud along the darkness, and it gave light at night. Thus the one who did not come near, just one did not come near the other all night. So now they're boxed in all the way around. So the Egyptians caught up with them, and then this pillar of fire stops in front of them. That should tell two parties two things. Israel, you're safe. Stop worrying about it, right? I mean, today, if we saw a rocket ship take off, nobody in the room would flinch. Okay, if we see airplanes take off and land all the time. The first time you see something like that, you should be talking about it for a while, and it's right there. And they're saying, well, why'd you bring us here to kill us? Don't you see, right? You see the thing right there that's protecting us? And the Egyptians should have been like, Pharaoh, I don't think we can fight our way through that cloud. Right? Right? It should be like, I don't think we're going to do that. But they still persist. And so Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh swept back the sea by a strong east wind all night that turned the sea into dry land. So it's not instantaneous. It took a lot of time for it to happen, which is time to give people the cue to notice, see how this is happening. Who commands the wind, by the way? Huh? Right? Right? So we all think it says Yahweh. We're all pretty confident that Yeshua was walking around in all this as well, right? And then later in the New Testament, he just says, hush, wind, right? And it goes away. So the sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea on dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and their left. The Egyptians took up the pursuit. So this means that cloud had to get out of the way, or had to go in front to lead them. And all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. At the morning watch, Yahweh looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud and brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. So not only, when this is portrayed in movies, it's portrayed as a pretty narrow thing. But if it was narrow, it had to be pretty wide in order for them to be confused, in order to spin around and do stuff. It had to be pretty big. This is a significant event. And I mean, how cool would it be to be able to walk on the bottom of the ocean, right? You'd be able to just reach down and pick up a fish, or you think they poked at the wall, right? Maybe there were, fish and stuff looking at them in the wall. I mean, it would have been pretty neat. So he caused the chariots and wheels to swerve, and he made them drive with difficulty. So the Egyptians said, let us flee from Israel, for Yahweh is fighting for them against the Egyptians. Right? You should have pieced that together a minute ago, fellas. So Yahweh said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians and over their chariots and their horsemen. Moses got to actually smite the Egyptians. Yahweh could have just done it. He said, Moses, watch this, right? But he lets Moses do it. Why is he doing this? Why do you think that he keeps working through Moses like this? Yeah.
Two things: that he's an example for the people to follow, want to continue to follow, and that it's also a picture of the way God works with having
Okay.
Yeshua to come.
I think I think those are same right ideas. Mine's more simple. He's about to start a nation, and he wants to make no doubt who is in charge of that nation. right? No doubt who is in charge of that nation. You don't listen to Moses, you are risking Moses dropping an ocean on you. Okay, okay. You will listen to Moses, and Moses is my guy, and Moses is the guy. And even Miriam and Aaron, they're like, well, Yahweh speaks to us too. Even they got a little bit of that jealousy going on, and they had to get smote. They had to not smote, they had to get punished. So Moses gets distracted. And how sweet must it have been to Moses to be able to squash him like that? You know? Yeah, I mean, it's a treat. It's a treat to be able to take out his enemies. So Moses stretched over his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then Yahweh overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, even Pharaoh's entire army that had gone out to the sea after them. Not even one of them remains. That just doesn't sound like a shallow marsh to me. It just doesn't, you know? So the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right and their left. Yahweh saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power which Yahweh had used against the Egyptians, the people feared Yahweh, and they believed in Yahweh and his servant Moses for about a minute. That's what they did. But what's a greater example here? Paul says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He made a way, right? These people were sinners. They were lost. They were rebellious. They didn't know their specialness. They kept rejecting Yahweh's blessings. And he says, this is where you're going, right? So we here believe that predestination and free will are both work together. Sometimes Yahweh is going to put you where he wants you to be, whether you want to be there or not. Jonah is not an isolated incident. These people were desperate to not have any conflict, to not have any war, to not have to work for it. And he took and threw them on the other side of the Red Sea and shut that thing so they could not go back. You know, they could go back by the other ways. But he says, no, you're going to go. And in the New Testament, they do analogize this crossing with baptism. Because what happens on the other side? They are effectively born again. They are no longer Egyptian slaves. They are the nation of Israel. They are Yahweh's chosen ones. They are the firstborn. They are a new thing. And he parks them at Mount Sinai and says, you've seen my wonderful works. Let me tell you my name. Right? Now that I've got your attention, let me tell you my name. And he says, and he goes through the Ten Commandments with rumblings and thunders, and he's saying, I did this. I destroyed the Egyptians. You don't have any other gods in front of you because I did this. And he gets their attention, and you know, it is what it is. They don't obey. But isn't that the way, you know, of all the history that people get blessed and then they mess it up and they get blessed. They mess it up, you know. So-
One thing too. I can't remember which historian. Of course, Josephus comes to mind, but I'm not sure he's the one who wrote this. But where it talks about how they saw the Egyptian soldiers on the beach. One of the historians wrote that there was a hard west wind and that blew for several days. And it washed up like tens of thousands of soldiers on the beach. And with that came armaments that allowed Moses to stand up an army to protect them. Because prior to this, you know, I mean, they were bakers and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. They were slaves. They weren't armed, you know.
Yeah.
And so this allowed them to have armaments to defend themselves by washing these soldiers up onto the beach.
Well, somehow they do happen to have weapons here in a minute, don't they?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Then Moses and the sons of Israel sang this song to Yahweh and said, I will sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea. Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will extol him. By the way, the word salvation in the New Testament, for those who don't know, is the word Yeshua. Right here. Yeshua, right? Yeshua is Jesus's real name, which means salvation. Oh. Ashley, are you trying to talk to me? Because you're on mute. So Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has cast into the sea, and the choicest of his officers are drowned in the Red Sea, not the Reed Sea. Okay, there is a problem with calling it the Reed Sea, is that we have the Septuagint, right? Okay, the Septuagint is the Greek version of the Old Testament that was written 2,000 years ago that calls it the Red Sea. So. Your right hand, O Yahweh, is majestic in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, shatters the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you overthrow those who rise up against you. You send forth your burning anger, and it consumes them as chaff. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters were piled up. The flowing waters stood up like a heap. The deeps were congealed in the heart of the sea. Bless you. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall be gratified. Against them will draw out my sword, and my hand will destroy them. You blew your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is among you among the gods, O Yahweh? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in praises and working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your loving kindness, you have led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength, you have guided them to your holy habitation. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Anguish has gripped the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were dismayed. The leaders of Moab, trembling, grips them. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. It was true. When they crossed the Jordan, 40 years later, those people were terrified of them. Terror and dread fell upon them. By the greatness of your army, they are motionless as stone until your people pass over, O Yahweh, until the people pass over whom you have purchased. You will bring them and plant them in the holy mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Yahweh, which you have made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. By the way, when O Lord is in all caps, it's Yod He Vav He. When it's like this in the translation I use, it's Adonai. Sometimes Yahweh is called Lord. So just wanted to point that out because it caught my eye. Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and a horseman went into the sea, and Yahweh brought back the waters of the sea on them. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea. Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam answered them, Sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider he is hurled into the sea. So because of this song, is why I picked Revelation 15 to be the New Testament part that I only posted last night. So it's my fault if you haven't read this. Okay. Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels, which had 7 plagues, which are the last, because in them the wrath of God is finished. And I saw something like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who had been victorious over the beast and his image and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, holding harps of God. And they sang the song of Moses, the bondservant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are your works, O Lord God, the Almighty. Righteous and true are your ways, King of the nations. So how is the rest of Christianity going to understand Revelation 15's reference to the Song of Moses if they never read the Song of Moses? Okay? How are they going to understand what happens? This is talking about the end of days, a period of time which we have not reached. Maybe we have, right? This is yet to come. And we're talking 2,000 years after the close of Scripture, after the New Testament's done, plus people are referencing the Song of Moses. So we have to understand the Torah to understand the New Testament, to understand what's happening. Okay. Why? What is the Song of Moses? It's about him. It's giving thanks to Yahweh and his greatness and power for destroying the Egyptians. And they're singing this song before the 7 plagues. The Song of Moses was sung after Egypt was smote. This is being sung before. What's the contrast there? Faith, the faith that he is going to do it. The difficulty that they have in the Old Testament is that Yahweh does a great thing and they go, great, and then they forget. They lack the faith. Here, in the end of days, they're singing the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb before Yahweh does it, because we and they we don't just believe that he's going to do what he says. We know it, right? We know that these events are going to happen. We believe the stuff in the Old Testament happened without seeing. We also believe the stuff that's going to happen is going to happen without seeing. So the faith is kind of a key here, that these people who are singing are believing that Yahweh is going to do what he said he's going to do. We're the people of the Exodus, a stubborn, stiff-necked people who are not, I don't mean to sound like so negative, right? Obviously it's part of the plan. Obviously these people are going to be in the resurrection, right? It's not, I'm not condemning them or anything. I'm saying this information was provided for a contrast for us for right living. And whatever age you live in, whether you live in peacetime or wartime, or whether you are an academic, or you are labor, or you are a school teacher, or a mom, or whatever time you live in, and whatever you are, your goal is to just believe that he's going to do what he's going to do, and what he has done that has already occurred. And that's what he's been begging mankind for what, 4,500 years? 5,700 years. He's been begging for mankind to just believe him, right? Paul says in Romans 1 that creation testifies. The mountains, the animals, the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, all this stuff working in unison. We should believe just on that. Ross, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking, while I was reading this, I remember an old song. The group is called My Soul Upon Lions. They did the first 30 Psalms. They put modern music to it. And they also did one on the Song of Moses. And yesterday I was listening to the song several times, and their modern version follows a lot of the Bible.
All right. Sons of Korah? Or
Called the song, My Soul Upon Lions is the name of the group.
My soul upon lions? Roar?
Lions. My Soul Upon Lions.
All right, lines. Okay. Lines. Not. Okay. But this is important, because if it's important enough for the Song of Moses to still be in Revelation 15, then we should probably be believing Moses today. And
I've never heard of the Protestant Moses song. I will sing unto the Lord. It is scriptural. We sang it in the 90s. I don't know if they're still singing it.
No,
So,
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think probably even sung it. Yeah. Yep. So, Miriam, this is what we were talking about last week on here and on the Friday night group. It's pretty hard for Miriam to be a prophetess if she's not allowed to talk. Okay. Okay. Paul wrote that let the women be silent. He wrote what he wrote. But at the same time, there are prophetesses in the New Testament. One guy had 2 daughters that were prophetesses. So whatever Paul wrote can't really mean what we think it means, because Miriam is a prophetess and she's executing authority over the women, right? She is issuing a command here: sing to Yahweh, for he's highly exalted. The horse and his rider he has hurled into the sea. She is telling them what to do, and they're doing it. Rightfully so. So, and that's the Haftarah goes along with that too. Lions. It is raw. Okay. Okay. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. And they came to Marah. They could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. What shall we drink? And he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree, and he threw it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There he made for them a statute and regulation, and there he tested them. And he said, if you will give earnest heed to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I put on the Egyptians, for I, Yahweh, am your healer. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms. They camped there besides the water. Did you guys see anything in there that catches your eye? It's a couple of things to catch our eye in there. Huh? Remember I was telling you about the chiastic structure and the mirrors and stuff? In this case, he takes a tree and throws it in the water to make it sweet. In Revelation, he takes wormwood and throws it in the water to make it bitter. Mirror image. Okay? 12 springs of water. 12 tribes, 12 apostles, 70 date palms, 70 elders, 70, I guess they're also called elders, right? Right? In the New Testament. He's telling them what they're about to do, and through behavior, through actions. And so he made them cry out for water. He keeps testing them because he knows, you know? And again, they cried out. They couldn't drink the water, so they were grumbling. So the people grumbled at Moses. Right? I'm kind of torn on this one. You have 3 days without water. You know? I mean, you might want to, I don't know about grumbling, but you might want to fire off a memo, you know, say, hey, Moses, right? But Yahweh probably should have known they needed water anyway, which he did. He's testing them. Okay. So 16, they sent out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, and on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. So even though this word is sin, S-I-N, it has nothing to do with sinning or going without. It's the Spanish meaning of the word sin. It just is a place. That's it. Nothing big there. 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. There is tradition that says that the 10 commandments were given on the day of Pentecost. And mathematically, that's possible. Pentecost is 50 days after the day of the wave sheaf, which is the Sabbath after the Passover, you count 50 days. So you're somewhere around 53 days after Passover, depending upon the week. This is now the 15th day of the second month after their departure. So we're getting pretty close to that 50 days. Hello, Gracie Poo. Can I help you?
No.
All right. So the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The sons of Israel said to them, would that we had died by Yahweh's hand in the land of Egypt when we sat by pots of meat and we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger. This is very offensive. Very offensive. They're saying you, Moses, brought us out of Egypt. Not Yahweh brought us out of Egypt. They're not giving credit to Yahweh. They're giving blame to Moses. I mean, Yahweh's got to be pretty mad at this point, right? And so then Yahweh said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven on you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether or not they will walk in my instruction. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, at evening you will know that the Yahweh has brought you out from the land of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of Yahweh, for he hears your grumblings against Yahweh. And what are we that you grumble against us? He's being good here. He's saying, why are you talking to me? Why are you grumbling to me? I didn't bring you out. I'm Yahweh's servant. Right? Moses said, this will happen when Yahweh gives you meat to eat in the evening and bread to the full in the morning. For Yahweh hears your grumblings, which you grumble against him. And what are we? For your grumblings are not against us, but against Yahweh. And Moses said to Aaron, say to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, come near before Yahweh, for he has heard your grumblings. It came about as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. Okay, what we see here is that Yahweh talks to Moses, Moses talks to Aaron. They're maintaining that mediator relationship that was established when he talked to Pharaoh. That's still in play here. So remember when Moses was called, he says, I'm slow of speech. I can't do it. Give me somebody else. It's okay. You can have your brother. So Yahweh says, I'm going to tell you, you're going to tell your brother's going to tell Pharaoh. And he sets up this tiered mediator system, which is setting up the New Testament mediator. Yeshua is the mediator of the new covenant, right? There's one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ. So they're continuing this mediatorship here. And the glory of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. Yahweh said to Moses, saying, I have heard the grumblings of the sons of Israel. Speak to them, saying, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you will know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. So it came about at evening that the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew on the camp. When the layer of dew evaporated, behold, this on the surface of the wilderness there was a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the sons of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, it is the bread which Yahweh has given you to eat. This is what Yahweh has commanded. Gather it, every man, as much as you should eat. You should take an omer apiece according to the number of persons each of you has in his tent. The sons of Israel did so, and some gathered much and some gathered little. When they measured it with an omer, he who had gathered much had no excess, and he who had gathered little had no lack, and every man gathered as much as he should eat. Moses said to them, let no man leave of it until morning. They did not listen to Moses and left some of it until morning. And it bred worms, became foul. Moses was angry with them. They gathered it by morning by morning, as every man as much as he should eat. But when the sun grew hot, it would melt. Now on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one, when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said, this is what the Lord meant. Tomorrow is a Sabbath observance, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over, put aside and be kept until morning. So they put it aside until morning, and as Moses had ordered, it did not come foul, or there was no worm. He said, eat it today. Today is the Sabbath to Yahweh. You will not find it in the field. 6 days you gather, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none. It came about the 7th day that some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. And Yahweh said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? Yahweh has given you the Sabbath, therefore he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. The house of Israel named it manna because it was like coriander seed and white, and it tasted like wafers. So, okay, he's showing them the Sabbath, right? I know I just read all of that boringly, putting people to sleep, right? Through behavior, right? Not supposed to work on the Sabbath day. Not supposed to cook on the Sabbath day, right? That we do a little bit of reheating around here. We do have a potluck every week. Okay, I think they probably did something similar to that, because they would prepare it and then they would eat it on the Sabbath day. So we follow that pattern. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about here? The jar of for whatever manna. The word manna is reserved for just this food, but it's based on the question that they asked. manishma, or ma. Ma means what? What is this? Right? They named it, what is this? That's what manna means. What is this? Is what is it's a double entendre. So its name is named the question of what is it. It's kind of a trippy thing there. I know we probably all think that manna is something else. And so putting a jar next to the tent of meeting, it shows you that this was written after the events happened, not as a journal, because the tabernacle isn't built yet in this time frame. There's no, so he says they put it in a place before Yahweh to be kept through your generations, and Aaron put it before the testimony to be kept. At this point, they're in the middle of making the testimony, so it isn't written yet. So that's same thing with the New Testament. I know when I first started reading the Bible, I thought the Gospels were written as journals, and it was a long time later that I realized, wait a minute, these things were written 20 years after the events happened inside of it. So that gives you context, that understanding that the Torah was not written in real time, is written in arrears, can help to alleviate some problems you might have with it. Like Moses dying and there still being another chapter of Deuteronomy, right? Right? Somebody else was writing it on Moses's behalf. Okay. Sons of Israel ate the manna 40 years. This is another clue. At this point in time, they are not, they haven't done the spies thing. So they're not stuck for 40 years yet. And they came into an inhabited land. They ate the manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is a tenth of an ephah. So when they come to the border of the land of Canaan is when Joshua is in charge. This is recorded in Joshua 5. And when they cross over, they have to circumcise themselves. Then they have to cross over, and then they start baking bread, because there is enough crops for them to harvest for how many millions of people? Because at that point, the first generation has died off, and it's the second generation.
It's pretty
Oh.
even.
Okay.
Seems to be is it in Joshua that they do another census?
Yeah.
And it's pretty darn even.
Yeah, but 600 and something thousand.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about the same.
Okay. And so that's where we get on that and Everett's not here this week. He messaged me that he's got company. So he's Everett was kind of shocked when I said they didn't keep the holy days in the promised land. So what it says, right? Right? You can't keep Passover if you don't have bread. Right? You can't keep Passover if you're not circumcised. You can't keep the holy days that are on a cycle of agriculture, right? And without that, you can't do it. If you don't plant food, if you don't plant barley, then you don't have barley to become Abib, so you can't determine the new year. So when they cross over in Joshua 5, they get a reset and they say, okay, this is, go time. Water. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just had found a reference about manna, hidden manna in Revelation
Oh,
2:17.
okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Go to it. Okay. Revelation 2. Oh, that's the wrong one. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, to him I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone and a new name written on the stone, which no one knows but he who receives it.
They were saying that manna was hidden in the Ark of the Covenant, but I haven't seen that.
Oh,
But that the collection was to be put in there for perpetuity, to show God's miracle for food.
yeah. So it was put in there to show God's miracle of food. It's kind of a memento of the occasion. Yep, that's for sure. But the word manna, even though I said that they named it literally, what is this? After that moment, the word manna means manna, right? It means, so here it means what it means, that talking about that stuff. Yeah. Okay. Oop. The rock. When all the congregation, uh, then all the congregation of the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin to, according to the commandment of Yahweh, encamped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore, the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" Moses is starting to crack. Okay. There's just no way around it. Moses he's about had it with these guys right here. Okay. And rightfully so. And so when the people thirsted there for water, they grumbled against Moses. And why now have you brought us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? Moses cried out to Yahweh, saying, "What shall I do to this people? A little more, and they will stone me." Yeah, it's true. Yahweh said to Moses, "Pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand your staff which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, the water will come out of it, and the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he named the place Massah and Meribah because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, because they tested the Lord, is Lord not among us? Okay. This time he did it right. Right? Did exactly what he was supposed to do. And I think that's all the notes I have. Is that the end of it? All right. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us to go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself at the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek. Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it came about when Moses held his hand up that Israel prevailed, and when he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. So they took it, put a stone, and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur supported his hands, and one on one side and one on the other, and thus his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and named it "Yahweh is my banner." And he said, "Yahweh has sworn, Yahweh will have war against Amalek from generation to generation." So in this case, Yahweh actually defeats these Amalekites through Joshua's military leadership. And at this point, Joshua becomes the military leader of Israel, which he maintains that position all the way through the conquests. Anybody, anything else? Okay. Descendant of Esau, also his posterity and their country. So he's a really kind of a bad dude. Yeah, not a good. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a deeper definition of banner? Well, since I have this up, Lord is my banner, and this is a sale. Dictionaries. Something lifted up, standard, signal, pole, ensign, banner, sign. A standard is a rallying point, a pole, an ensign, a signal. So what that would mean is when a king goes to fight, they put up a banner, just like we put a flag on our ships. Our ships are sailing for the United States. Moses is giving credit to Yahweh for the victory. He's saying Yahweh is our banner, that we didn't do this ourselves, that God delivered these people into our hands. Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking of something, Chris. During the American Civil War, all the troops from the different states had their own banners to identify who they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to go to Judges 4:4. Do, do, do. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She used to sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the sons of Israel came up to her for judgment. Again, very difficult for this lady to have this position if she is not allowed to talk. So it's very rare for women in the Old Testament to be in these positions, but it is not a chauvinistic document like we have come to expect. Women do have property rights. They do have rights. They can speak up. They can be blessed. They frequently are used in incredibly important situations. Who were the first people that the risen Messiah revealed himself to? It's women, right? Why was that? Because those ladies were the most faithful. They were back at the tomb. They were doing what they were supposed to do. So this is it's the Bible is primarily a male dominated document, but that doesn't and when it says sons of Israel, sometimes it means sons, most of the time it means children, because in Hebrew, like in every other language except for English, right? When you words have gender. So words have a gender assigned to them. So it says sons. If there's a group of 5 gals, it would be daughters. If there was a group of 5 gals and 1 guy, it switches to sons. Just like it does in Spanish, Italian, French, right? It just switches into a gender-based thing. We have a hard time with that in English because our language doesn't do that, right? We don't even have a you. We don't have a plural you. We don't have ustedes. We have y'all, right? Right? We don't even have. So if we say you, it could be you. Or it could be all y'all, right? So yeah, so the language stuff, learning any other language, knowing any other language helps you to understand the Bible because you are open to things not being the same, and that's a big thing, to me. So any rate, she sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, behold, Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, has commanded, go and march to Mount Tabor and take with you 10,000 men from the sons of Naphtali and from the sons of Zebulun. I will draw out to you Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his many troops to the river Kishon. We'll give them in your hand. And Barak said to her, if you will go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Barak is chicken. Okay? He is not. First, he's not believing her. He's not believing that she has authority from Yahweh, and he's not believing Yahweh. Okay? He's saying, if you come with me and you risk your skin, then we'll go do this thing. It's a problem. That's not a good example at all. She said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the honor shall not be yours on the journey that you are about to take, for Yahweh will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman. Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak is probably thinking that she is going to take credit for the battle. And that's not how that turns out, is it? Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together to Kadesh, and 10,000 men went up with him, and Deborah also with him. Now Heber the Kenite had separated himself from the Kenites, from the sons of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent far away as the oak of Zananim, which is near Kadesh. And they told Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. Sisera called together all his chariots, 900 iron chariots, and all the people who were with him from Harosh Hagoyim, really? The nations, right? To the river of Kishon. So this is 900 chariots against how many men? 10,000, right? So they're going to go battle 900 chariots at 10,000, where 2 million, 3 million Egyptians were afraid of 600 chariots, right? right? This is getting better. Deborah said to Barak, arise, for this is the day which Yahweh has given Sisera into your hand. Behold, Yahweh has gone out before you. So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. Yahweh routed Sisera and all his chariots, all his army with the edge of the sword before Barak, and Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled away on foot. So, who's the chicken now? Okay. Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not even one was left. Sisera fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Eber the Kenite, and there was peace between Jabin and the king of Hazor in the house of Eber the Kenite. So he's at an ally's residence. Jael goes out to meet Sisera, said to him, turn aside, my master, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid. And he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. And he said to her, please give me a little water to drink, for I'm thirsty. So she opened a bottle of milk and gave him milk to drink. Then she covered him. And he said to her, stand at the doorway of the tent. And it shall be, if anybody comes and inquires of you and says, is there anyone here? You shall say no. But Jael, Eber's wife, took a tent peg and seized a hammer in her hand and went secretly to him and drove the peg into his temple and went through into the ground, for he was sound asleep and exhausted, so he died. And behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out and said to him, come, I will show you the man whom you are seeking. And he entered with her, and behold, Sisera was lying dead with a tent peg in his temple. So God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the sons of Israel. The hand of the sons of Israel pressed heavier and heavier on Jabin, the king of Canaan, till they had destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. All right. So, why did she give him milk instead of water? Uh-oh. Ross is going to spoil it. Go ahead, dude. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I've read some accounts that they think that Jael and her husband were spies, but she gave him milk the same reason that most of us take warm milk before we go to bed. Makes us sleepy.
Yep. She gave that man a tranquilizer. And she took him out, right? She knocked him out. She made him nice and comfy and knocked him out. And then she smashed him and she put him down. And well, this isn't exactly Sabbath school material, right? Right. This is not. So she took out this wicked leader through deceit. And it was okay. A woman can't overpower a man. But she did what needed to be done. And she said, here, have some milk, right? You're nice and snug as a bug in a rug, right? And I don't think that's the meaning of that, right? Traces back to ancient Hebrew, right? So then Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang a song on that day that the leaders in Israel and the people volunteered. Bless Yahweh. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Hear, O kings, and give ear, O rulers. To Yahweh, I will sing praises to Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. Yahweh, you went out from Seir when you marched from the field of Edom. The earth quaked and the heavens also dripped. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I'm running out of voice today. But what is the difference between this and Israel? These guys voluntarily sung the song and gave the credit to Yahweh when Israel was lost. Israel was pagan at this point. Israel was not in a good position. They had plenty of multiple gods in there and whatever. And so they win this victory and they give credit to Yahweh for the victory. 10,000 men went against 900 chariots when 2 million would not, or 600,000 would not go against 600. So this is a better option here. This is a better outcome. And so it talks about the peasantry ceased. They ceased in Israel until Deborah, arose. Until arose, a mother in Israel. Right? So she's still acting as a female. She's still feminine, even though she is a leader in Israel. New gods were chosen. That was their mistake. new gods not to be chosen, right? He doesn't like that at all. And she gives thanks to the commanders of Israel. You who ride on donkeys, you who travel on the road, sing. At the sound of those who divide the flocks, watering places, they shall recount the righteous deeds of Yahweh, the righteous deeds for his peasantry in Israel. That then the people of Yahweh went down to the gates. Awake, Deborah. Deborah gets a song, and Barak gets credit too. And it gets down to the end. Where's my last note? Jael is, oh, I can't see it, is the most blessed in the Bible. Right here. 5:24. Most blessed of women is Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Most blessed is she of women in the tent. This is important because this makes her, the Bible doesn't say that Mary and Elizabeth are most blessed. It says they're blessed. Jael is most blessed. I didn't write it, right? Right? This is a huge honor. It's a huge honor for a woman to get her name recorded in Scripture. Okay, at all, for her to be called most blessed, her who took the initiative to do the right thing is very good, very good, a very good example for us too. And I'm not recommending that you actually do what she did, right? Right? Her activity, but don't be timid and don't be shy and don't think, oh, I'm just a woman or I'm just to this or I'm just to that. When Yahweh puts a mission in front of you, you go for it when it's clear as day, right? Don't think that you got to ask somebody else a question or whatever, right? Because obviously she was all alone when he comes to her, and maybe she knew about the war, maybe she didn't know about the war, but she knew that he was a wicked ruler and that he was punishing the people, and she had the opportunity to make that change, and she took the initiative. You know? Anybody else? Oh, they got peace for 40 years after this, by the way. The land was undisturbed for 40 years. It's pretty good. Ross.
I was reading 15 through 17, some of the tribes that didn't come,
Yeah.
and I was comparing the tribes that didn't come to what the blessings that Jacob gave them before he died. That's in Genesis 49, 3 and 4. Starting with Reuben, he said his son Reuben would be stable as water. And here, when we read Judges 15, said Reuben they were divided. They didn't know what to do. They kind of waffled back and forth.
Yep. Dan sat in ships. These guys get shamed. The guys who didn't go out to fight get shamed. Even though Yahweh called specific groups to fight, the ones who didn't come do get shamed.
And actually, one of them was cursed, and that was one of the cities of Ishkar. It's in 23. Curse Mizraz. And when I looked it up on the map, it was southwest of Mount Tabor in the land of Ishkar. Now, Ishkar went, but for some reason, that's in 15. So why was this city cursed for some reason? They did not come to help the Lord against the warriors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is interesting that at this moment in time, Israel has a woman in charge of it, and a woman was the person who actually defeated the wicked king. So just keep that in mind, that Yahweh's he's gonna get done what he needs to get done, whoever he uses.